Hello and welcome. This is episode 2 of This Week in the Bay. We have a lot of fun stuff for you today. We're gonna talk football, we're gonna talk basketball, and we are going to talk baseball. I'm your host, Chris Jose Nixon, and I'm here with my little brother, Drew Jose Nixon. And as you know on this show, we like to start off with one big topic. So let's jump right into a little bit of baseball because, as I'm sure many of you know, yesterday at, I believe it was 9 p.m. Pacific time was the end of, it was 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 a.m. Eastern time was the official end of the trade deadline in the MLB because you had to get a player on your roster by the first day of September in order for them to play on your team for the playoffs. So there were some deals that went down, and we're going to jump right into that right now. There was a few high-profile deals, and so we're going to start with one of those deals. It's the Central Division, the AL Central Division leader Indians acquiring Josh Donaldson. And Drew, first let me hear what you think about that trade, and then I'll talk about what I thought about it.
I really liked that trade for the Indians and both teams, actually. I feel like the Blue Jays had gotten what they needed out of him, and he wasn't going to be useful to them because they need somebody who can carry their team down the road. And he, to be honest, is getting old, which is weird to say as a 12-year-old kid who's been around for his whole career, but he's not the same guy we used to see. So I think that's a good trade. He's more of a spark plug now, and I think that's something that the Indians can utilize him as much better than the Blue Jays could. So I'm happy to see him go. I think he'll enjoy playing in Cleveland. He can DH some, and they'll be able to move a lot of guys around, and that'll be interesting to see how they utilize him. But I think it's a win for everybody. So I think he was ready to move on, and the team is happy to have him. So that's just me.
So Drew said that he really likes the Donaldson trade to the Indians, and I have to say I completely agree there. And let me tell you why. First of all, let's talk about the Indians, the team that is going to acquire Josh Donaldson. The Indians, as I mentioned, are right now the leader in the AL
Worst division
Central.
in baseball.
That is arguably true, but
it's
not what we're talking about right now. That's not what we're talking about right now. That's not what we're talking about right now. That's not what we're talking about right now. The Indians, they're in a very good spot. They're basically locked to make the playoffs. They're, like Drew said, the four other teams in that division can't compete with them.
The White Sox.
That's not true. Also, that's absolutely not true. The White Sox have the same record as the Detroit Tigers, but the Indians, they're basically locked for the playoffs. So what do? You need to gear up and add some players that can help you once you're there. And I think Donaldson makes a lot of sense because he just adds an extra bat either to the lineup as a DH or as a pinch hitter in any situation where you think you might want him instead of any other player. Maybe get a righty-lefty matchup in or something like that. And another reason that why I think that Donaldson makes a lot of sense fit-wise is because he doesn't have to start, and he's had injury problems. That's been his main issue as a player is injuries, and so he doesn't have to start. You're not relying on him every day. You still have Jose Ramirez at third base. You still have Francisco Lindor, obviously, at short, and Kipnis is going to be at second base, and that means Encarnacion is going to have to play a little bit more first base when Donaldson is DHing. But if you look at that roster, that means that it can help provide rest for Lindor if you want to slide Ramirez over to short for a day and give Lindor a rest and put Donaldson at third. It can provide rest for Ramirez if you want to put Donaldson at third. It can help provide rest for the superstars that they have. And if an Encarnacion, I guess, can still DH at times if they want to sit Donaldson for a day. You give a lot of other players the opportunity to have some more rest coming up on the playoffs, which is always a good thing. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for their team in terms of the fit that he's going to bring into Cleveland. And so on from Cleveland, next team we're going to talk about is going to be the NL Central's Milwaukee Brewers. And Brewers made a couple of trades yesterday, actually, that were on the high-profile side of things. And so, yeah, Drew, I don't know what you think about these trades. Especially, I want to hear your thoughts on the Curtis Granderson trade and the Gio Gonzalez trade.
I like the trade for Curtis Granderson, just like what the Indians seem to have been doing there. It's just another bat you have in your lineup, and I think that will be very helpful for them. Pinch hit situation, trying to get a righty-lefty matchup. He could have made a career just hitting grand slams, and if you're going to pinch hit with somebody, why not have somebody who has a pedigree of hitting grand slams? So I think that he's like 50, so you don't have to give much up for him, and he's just an extra bat that is a lot more upside than what you had to give away for him. He's another guy where on his team he couldn't do enough for the team, but I like where he is now, and I think that he'll be good. On the side of Gio Gonzalez, now this is an interesting topic because he, like Donaldson, used to be very good, and I don't think he's there anymore. And because of that, I don't think that that's a good pick for a team that is looking to get into the playoffs. I mean, I do think that they needed a starting pitcher, but a washed-up starting pitcher is not actually going to help you. So I really do think that it was a bad move for them to pick him up because although he is a talented pitcher and will always be a talented pitcher, he's not the pitcher he used to be, and I'm not sure that he's better than the pitcher that's no longer going to be pitching because he's not, or because he's here. So I'm really frustrated about that, but I can live with it for now. I think he would be of much better use if they used him as a 3-inning reliever. If you had a bad start, could just put him in for a couple innings to eat some innings. So that's the rule that I think would be best for him. But I'm not sure if that's how the Brewers are going to utilize him, which is why I'm not very happy about it.
So similarly to Drew, I have a favorable opinion on the Granderson trade, and yeah, it's similar. I'm in the same boat as Drew on that one. I think it's nice to have an extra bat in the lineup that can do a little bit of damage, come in as a pinch hitter, which is even more valuable in the National League because of pitchers actually have to hit. There's no DH in the National League, so it's good to have a guy off the bench that can hit a little bit, and so he's got a little power. It makes sense, and you don't have to give up too much for him, so it's fine. Gio Gonzalez, though, I'm really, really iffy on that one. And the reason I'm really iffy on that one is because in the past, Gio has not had any success at Miller Park. That's one of the issues that I find there. And then the other issue is just recently, Gio really has had a tough time. And
bad.
This year he's been bad. This year's stats, his ERA has soared up to 4.57. He is 7-11. He's had a really bad year. 70 walks on the year so far. It's been tough. But back to the specific stats this year. Since the beginning of June, he is 73rd out of 74 qualified starting pitchers in ERA with a 6.53 ERA. So since the beginning of June, his ERA has been 6.53. That's horrible, obviously. And in Miller Park, where the Brewers play, obviously, in his career, although it's only been 5 starts, he has had a 6.75 ERA. He's clearly showed that he's clearly showed that he's not able to pitch very well in Miller Park. So I don't know if that makes sense to really I don't know if that makes sense to trade for a player that just hasn't had success recently at all, hasn't had success in Miller Park. That being said, a little change of scenery can definitely help. And like Drew said, he has been a very good pitcher in the past. Take last year, he was 6th in the Cy Young voting, and he had a really good year. 2.96 ERA. He went 15-9. He got up over 200 innings pitched. It was a good year for Gio last year. But, this year has not been the same story. He's really had a tough time. And so I think that if Gio were able to completely revert back to the season he had last year and not continue the one he's having this year, then it's an incredible trade. But based on the season that he's having this year, I think that trade is a very big risk to be taking. However, for the right price, it is a trade that you're willing to make that risk on, because you do want that extra arm come playoff time, and maybe you can use him in different situations. But overall, I'm not really in favor of it, because the numbers. I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers really tell me that Gio he's not having a good year, and he has a tough time pitching at Miller Park. So I'm not really personally in favor of that trade. And then now we're gonna really move into our one of our main topics of the day. No longer the one big topic, but another trade deadline event that went down was our guy Andrew McCutchen from the Giants. He was traded to the Yanks, and honestly, I actually did like the move for both sides, but I'll get into my part later. Let's hear what Drew thinks. Drew, what do you think about that one?
Well, I talked about this on last night's show with Max, so I'll keep mine simple. Basically, he's not like some of the other guys we've talked about. He's not good enough to do it on his own. He needs a supporting cast. He can't be the man, and that's what he's gonna get in New York. He's gonna play until they get Judge back, and then we'll see what his role is after that. So, but for now, I really don't think it will be that big of a deal for the Giants in terms of this season's outcome. And in the future, he's not good enough to make a big enough impact. He's not going to be the difference between the playoffs and not the playoffs. So I think that it was fine to get rid of him, and that it's ultimately not going to hurt them that much.
So, like I said, personally, I was in favor of the Andrew McCutchen trade, and as I said, if you remember from last episode, Andrew McCutchen, or the Giants, they needed to rebuild. And so I'm going to look at things, I'm going to look at this trade from really the Giants side of it. And the Giants, they needed to completely launch into a rebuild. And Andrew McCutchen, I mean, at his age, he's not going to be a part of the rebuild. I mean, the Giants need to completely restart their franchise. And Andrew McCutchen's 31. By the time the Giants are good, 5 or 6 years down the road, Andrew McCutchen's not going to be at a serviceable age to where he can really help the team out.
The only way he'll be serviceable in 6 years is as a hitting coach.
He's not gonna be able to help the team win by the time that they're ready for him to help the team win. And this year, I mean, he's had solid stats, and then nothing great, but he's been decent this year. And I mean, his OPS is near 800. He's batting 255. He has had 15 home runs in AT&T Park, which is not easy to do, by the way. So it's a player that's gonna help out the Yankees a lot more than he was gonna help out the Giants. So I really like the trade from both sides. And the other thing that I want to say about this trade is that the Giants, well, like I said earlier, they need to rebuild, and that's a good start. They got prospects from the Yankees, who have one of the strong farm systems in all of baseball. So I do like the move from both sides, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And so I'm in favor of the move. I'm in favor of the move. I'm kind of sad to see McCutchen go, because I like McCutchen. Good guy, good player. I mean, I was glad to have him on the team, but it was obviously short-lived, and I think it makes sense that way. So I wish him nothing but good luck as a Yankee. And I hope he's able to do well over there. And I think that's gonna just about wrap it up for the baseball section of today. You're good, Drew?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Well, the other big sort of shifting in rosters in major sports that happened recently, or not shifting. Well, yeah, the other big roster moves that happened recently in sports. It's the NFL, and it's the big defensive linemen, the superstars. The two of the best defensive players in the league just signed huge deals. So first of all, we're going to start off with Aaron Donald, who I believe his deal was officially signed yesterday, but he signed a huge extension with the Rams. I believe it's 6 years, $135 million total, and and 87 million are guaranteed. And as a Raiders as a guy in the Raiders market, and I live in Oakland, I really looked at this from the perspective of the Raiders and Khalil Mack, and I knew that depending on Donald's deal, that was going to set the precedent for what Khalil Mack's deal was going to eventually look like and what extension he was going to eventually sign, and I knew it would be comparable to the Donald deal, and so I yesterday remember thinking, okay, now Mack is up next. What is he going to sign? And Mack got traded today. Immediately, John Gruden, he got rid of Khalil Mack, and he traded him to the Bears. The exact details are the Bears received Khalil Mack, a 2020 second-round pick, and a conditional 2020 fifth-round pick from the Raiders. And then the Raiders received a 2019 and 2020 first-round pick, so one first-round pick for the Bears for the next 2 years, and then a 2020 third-round pick and a 2019, so this upcoming draft, a sixth-round pick, and Khalil Mack got a 6-year, $141 million extension and $90 million guaranteed in that extension. So, obviously, and Khalil Mack, he became the highest-paid defender in NFL history, so obviously that's a huge shift in the landscape of football, especially when it's on the Raiders side of things, because they are trying to get back into a spot where they can really compete. So, Drew, I want to hear what are your thoughts overall on this trade and how is there a winner or a loser, and what do you think about overall how the trade went over?
Well, obviously the number one winner is Khalil Mack.
That's true.
He got his payday. He's got at least $90 million, and being a Raiders fan, we know that he's worth that whole $140 million. Well, nobody's really worth that much money.
He's worth the $90 million, though, I would say.
I think that he will get that whole money, not just the guaranteed. I don't feel like he will get released later. So I think it's really good for him. I actually did like what the Raiders did. I gotta say, I feel like it was good on them because, well, there's one problem I have, but we'll get to that in a second. It was good on them to get rid of Khalil Mack because ultimately he's not the difference between winning and losing for them. They're not getting I don't believe that they're going to give up any more points because he's not there. And so I really think that, and if they do, it will be worth less than the two first-round picks, the third-round pick, and the sixth-round pick. So I think it was a deal worth taking for the Raiders. And on the Bears side, it was also a good deal for them. I mean, I think getting a premier defender is obviously great. He'll improve their defense, which has a lot of pieces. None of them are great, but they're fine, and he can help them become better. So it's a win-win there. And so I really did like this trade. How about you, Chris?
So for Khalil Mack, I personally think he's the second best defensive player in the NFL. Aaron Donald is the first, and Khalil Mack is the second. That's my opinion. And there's a few reasons why. First, I'm just reading you a couple of Khalil Mack's stats. Let's start with in 2015, he ended up, well, he had 15 sacks. That's great. That's a great number. 15 sacks. That's a lot of sacks, obviously. That's, simply math-wise, that's almost one per game. And, but what's even more interesting about his 2015 season is that Khalil Mack actually made the Pro Bowl at not one but two different positions, both in the same year. So Khalil Mack was a Pro Bowler at both defensive end and at linebacker in the same year. So that right there shows you the versatility that Mack possesses, and that he's able, and that shows you the multiple things that he's able to do on the football field. And unlike Drew, I do think that Khalil Mack can definitely be the difference between winning and losing games this year because of the pressure that he puts on quarterbacks. And I think that the way that you really should gauge a game changer, or should gauge a game changer in any sport, but especially in football, is how does he affect the game plan of the other team? And because if you're game planning to face the Raiders last year, the first thing you do as an offense is, how do we limit what Khalil Mack can do? That's the first thing you think. No. That's not what we're talking about. That's the first thing you think is an offense. And no matter what team Khalil Mack is on, he's at the top of your priority list in terms of players that you have to game plan for. So I don't care if Khalil Mack is on the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're still thinking Khalil Mack is on that team. How do we stop him? He's still one of the top priorities in terms of how do we game plan around this guy. And I think that's really the mark of a true game changer. And the reason that I think that he really affects games is because of the pressure he puts on the quarterback. But it's not all in the stats, because if you see a simple list of how many sacks he has, how many interceptions, how many forced fumbles, that is not going to tell you the whole story, because Khalil Mack can take up a double team and allow another guy to get a sack because he was in a one-on-one matchup with a running back, or a linebacker coming off a blitz, and then he's in a one-on-one matchup with a running back. He gets a sack. Or maybe Khalil Mack eats up two guys and allows a different linebacker on the next play to stop a guy for a 2-yard gain, as opposed to what would have been a 7-yard gain if he had been blocked. And it's small stuff like that Khalil Mack, just by taking two defenders or by pressuring the quarterback, can really change the game. And I can definitely see a scenario this year where the Raiders are against any team that they may play, and then Khalil Mack isn't there, obviously, and so there's no pressure on the quarterback. And let's say they're playing the Chargers, and Phillip Rivers can just sit back in the pocket all day and dot up their defense. He can find whatever receiver open every play because he has so much time, because there's no pressure on the quarterback. And so I think that the way that Khalil Mack is able to pressure the quarterback and really change the pace of which the quarterback has to operate on any given play is what makes him such a game changer. And that's why the Raiders are really going to miss him, because it's going to be a lot easier for quarterbacks and for offenses now to just destroy the Raiders. And they were already not a good defense, and losing your best player, defensively or offensively, they lost their best player, and he was their lone bright spot on defense. That really is going to hurt their defense, because now they don't have any stars on defense. They don't have any players that you really are scared of.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to get into with the Raiders. Like, I have one problem. I have a little letter I wrote to the Raiders. Dear Raiders, what are you doing? You're idiots. You need to figure out what you want.
Didn't you just say you like this trade?
I do. It's not about the trade, though. It's about, they know that their defense sucks. Their defense has sucked. Now you trade Khalil Mack. I like what you got in exchange for Khalil Mack. But your defense sucked, and your one bright spot on defense was Khalil Mack. Now, I don't think you're going to get any worse on defense, but you need to find a way to get better on defense if you want to contend.
How does that make sense? How does losing your best player not make you get worse?
Because
didn't the Thunder get worse when they lost Kevin Durant? Like, that's how that works. When you lose your best player, you are going to get worse.
Well, yeah, but I don't think that they're going to get that much. It's not that I don't think they're going to get worse. It's that I don't think it's going to be the difference between winning and losing for them. And I just need to know, what are the Raiders thinking in terms of their defense? Because at some point, you got to start making this defense better. I don't know what their plan is, but you got to start somewhere. And getting rid of Khalil Mack is not where you start.
To me, it sounds like
it might be where you start, but the next step needs to be coming. And I think your first step should have been acquiring somebody instead of letting go of somebody.
Well, you know what you just said you liked the deal because of what they got in return. I think that what their next step is to go and get draft picks and turn them into stars. And I mean, clearly that's what they were thinking. They were thinking that they're going to use the draft to build up the rest of their roster and fill in the rest of their spots, because now they have some highly valuable draft picks that they didn't have before. And so here's the thing about that. I think that the draft picks they got in exchange were very good in terms of the player that they were giving up and the contract money that they do not have to spend anymore. But the main issue I have really with that trade is the fact that they gave up a second round pick as well. If you take the second round pick out of the deal, it makes a lot of sense for me, because at that point you're saving a lot of money, you are getting a ton of valuable picks, and you're really giving up one asset for all of that money and all of those picks. So I think that I would understand it more if they were not giving up the second in the deal. But the fact that they're giving up a second, it makes it a lot less valuable of a haul that they're bringing in, I believe, because a second can turn into another good player or even a great player that they can have on their roster that could have been playing alongside Khalil Mack. And so I think that the fact that they gave up the second really doesn't sit right with me. And for the haul that they got back in exchange, it would be better if they didn't give up the second.
I would obviously have to agree with that. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you give up somebody, you're going to get worse than if you didn't give them up. And if you're going to give up a second-round pick instead of not giving up a second-round pick, you're going to get worse, obviously. Now, maybe I don't think this is how it works. I'm not completely sure because this is super not important to me. But they might get some kind of compensation pick. But I sure hope so, because this is not a good trade for them. The second round pick isn't a good trade for them. I like the trade, just not the second round pick.
So Drew thinks that the trade is good except for the second round pick. I think that it doesn't make sense because of the second round pick, and because your defense is now literally back to zero. Like, you don't have anything you can build around defense. But that's all we have really for football. That's the big story right now, and especially because it has to do with our hometown team, the Oakland Raiders. That's what we're talking about for football. But we're going to move on to my favorite sport. We're going to talk a little bit of basketball. And basketball right now, it's the off season. This is really the most boring time of the season. If you look at the NBA's Instagram account, they're just recapping top plays from the season. Like, the season doesn't start till, I believe, October 16th, and that's obviously a long ways away. So, but it is the beginning of September, and I think most true basketball superfans like myself know that the beginning of September is officially 2K season. And since it is 2K season, in honor of 2K season, we're going to be talking a little bit of NBA 2K19. And the prelude just dropped, but we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the actual NBA players and how they were rated. And so we have some of the confirmed ratings right now, and we're going to talk about what we thought about some of the currently confirmed NBA 2K ratings. So, Drew, I know you have a couple of players that you think are underrated, some others that you think are overrated in 2K19 to start. I want to hear what those are and why.
Okay, so my first player that I think is overrated. His name starts with an L because he is an L, but somehow he's still good. I'm talking about LaMarcus Aldridge. Like, what the heck? Like, he's talented. I'll give that to him. He's not an 88 overall. He's not the third best power forward in the league. Especially because Kevin Love has no teammates this year. And last time Kevin Love had no teammates, he was an absolute GOAT on the Timberwolves. So, I don't really think that LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be as good as he is, considering how much better he is than some other people who we'll get to later. So, I really think that he needs to be downgraded to more of an 85 area kind of guy. Like, I don't like this.
You think he's worse than Blake Griffin?
No, I think Blake Griffin needs to go down probably 2, but just not as much.
Okay, so you say LaMarcus Aldridge is overrated at 88. Well, keep in mind, though, LaMarcus Aldridge did average 23.1 points per game last year, 51% from the field, and his player efficiency rating, his player efficiency rating was, let me find that, it was 25. 25 is a very good rating, actually, for PER, so he did have a good year last year, so I personally see why they rated him at an 88. But I do think that'll go down this year because he's playing with DeMar DeRozan, who is definitely better. And for that reason, I think DeMar DeRozan is actually underrated. They have DeMar DeRozan at an 89 this year to start. I think he should be more of a 90, 91 type of player.
Just give
Probably,
LaMarcus.
I would give Lamar. I'll give DeMar a 91 right now. LaMarcus Aldridge, he had a really good year. But I don't think that he's that
give DeMar
close
2
to
of
DeMar.
LaMarcus Aldridge's overall points, and it would be perfect. You get DeMar at a 91, you get LaMarcus at an 86. I think that's more reasonable.
I think that makes sense. But I think you do have to give the LaMarcus the respect that he did earn last year by having that good of a season. I think he should be around an 87. I think 88 maybe is a little high, but I don't think that's outrageous. And DeMar DeRozan at last year did average less points on a worse field goal percentage in comparison to LaMarcus Aldridge, and his PER was worse. So I do see why they have LaMarcus so high, but I think overall, we all know that DeMar is truly the better player and should be a little bit higher in comparison to LaMarcus Aldridge. I'm not as strong of a. I don't think it's as big of a difference is needed as you think, Drew, but I think that definitely there's a little bit, the gap should be a bit bigger on that one. And so I have a couple more actually that I want to get into, but I don't know, you want to get into yours real quick first?
I'll talk about my first guy that is severely underrated, and he's also a shooting guard by the name of Victor Oladipo. We saw him have a fantastic year last year, lead the Indiana Pacers to a 4 seed, which is unheard of, being ahead of LeBron. They took them all the way to 7. They did lose, but they gave them a run for their money. And I think that him being the star of that team, there's no way you can say that Victor Oladipo and LaMarcus Aldridge are the same overall player.
Yeah,
There's
you're right
no
about
way.
that. You're right about
Like,
that. He led the league in steals, by the way, with 2.4 steals per game last year.
That LaMarcus needs to go down and Oli needs to go up. Oli is severely underrated. I think he should be a 90-plus player, considering some of the guys that are around him and overall. I mean, we've seen Jimmy Butler. He wasn't very good last year.
He was injured a lot of the year, but
One behind Bradley Beal and C.J. McCollum. Neither of them are the leading player on the teams.
he's ahead of them, by the way, not behind.
He's ahead of them by 1. But I think that he should be more than that because they're role players and he's that guy.
You said he's in the 90s, but so you're saying that he should
put him
be
at 90.
around DeMar DeRozan's level?
I think
A little bit below
should be
DeMar DeRozan?
91.
Okay,
He
so
should be 90.
he should be okay. So the same difference, but just both of them are underrated, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about Klay Thompson? Because Klay Thompson right now is an 89. So do you think that Vic is better than Klay Thompson?
I do because I
You
think,
do? Okay.
Yes. I think that Victor Oladipo is better at creating for himself.
He is better. Okay, that's true. He's definitely a better shot creator than Klay Thompson. But I personally would definitely say that Klay Thompson is the better basketball player in comparison to Victor Oladipo.
I don't think that Klay Thompson would be nearly as effective if he didn't have some of the teammates he has. I think he's extremely fortunate to get to play with Stephen Curry, who needs a lot of attention, and because of that makes his teammates better. Now, obviously, nothing against Klay Thompson. He's a great scorer, but I think he's lucky to have, if he had the right players around him. Like, I think if prime for him would be, like, not DeMar DeRozan, Damian Lillard, a kind of guy who creates a lot of attention for himself, but then Klay's still the second option, so that would be prime for Klay Thompson. And prime for him is not playing alone. That is for Victor Oladipo. Victor Oladipo can have success by himself, and that's why I think Victor is better.
Are you saying that Damian Lillard doesn't have success by himself? What do you mean prime for who is Damian? I'm confused what you mean by that.
Klay Thompson, I think he would be in the best position if he got to play alongside Damian Lillard, if they were the two best players. Because but overall your point was Klay Thompson is the benefactor of having stars around him. So what I think about that is, although that's partly true that he's better because of Steph, and I also think that it also goes the other direction, because if you look at Klay Thompson's stats this year, he averaged 16 field goal attempts per game, and Oladipo averaged 18. So I think that if you put Klay Thompson on his own team, get him 18, 19 shots a game, then Klay Thompson's scoring numbers are going to take a huge boost. You're going to see him. I think if he played on his own, you would see him draw more fouls. Because you'd see him getting more looks in the paint. You'd see him getting even more spot-up looks, even though he already gets a lot of them. You'd see him getting even more spot-up looks. You'd see him getting more looks in the post, which he does very well. He's got a nice post fadeaway. You see Klay Thompson, his scoring utilized in a much more aggressively, I would say, because he doesn't have so many superstars that can also score really efficiently and really well. And part of the reason that I say that Klay Thompson, I definitely think Klay Thompson is better than Victor Oladipo, and it's because, first of all, so the scoring, it's 3 points different per game on 2 shots. So 3 points on 2 shots, that's I guess that's 1 for 2 on a 3-pointer, or it's, I guess, you're 67% on a 2-point shot or free throws or whatever. So that's that's 1.5 points in 1 shot is what I'm saying, right? And per shot. So that's a few extra points per shot, or a few extra points on a few extra shots for Victor. But I do think that Klay's a better player because of what I mentioned earlier in terms of how he gets it done on less shots, and Klay Thompson shot a better shooting percentage and a far, far better 3-point percentage. So as we know, Klay Thompson, at least in my opinion, is the second greatest shooter of all time. I mean, I know Reggie and Ray were really good shooters, but I think the way that Klay Thompson does it much more efficiently than they did, and from deeper ranges than I think they did. I have to agree, for sure.
You're going to see. I would say Klay Thompson goes down as the second greatest shooter of all time behind Steph Curry. But so I think Klay Thompson, with his versatile scoring abilities, although he's not nearly the shot creator that Victor Oladipo is, I'm not even going to argue with you on that one. That's definitely not the case. He's not that type of shot creator. But Klay Thompson is definitely the defender Victor Oladipo is. He doesn't get as many steals, but Klay Thompson is a guy that he can play really good defense on your best perimeter player night in and night out while scoring 20-plus a game. And for that reason, I would take Klay Thompson over Oladipo. But I honestly do think that you should see Victor Oladipo a few rating points higher. And yeah, because I think 2K is being a little stingy here, because I think that Klay Thompson maybe should be a 90-91 because of what I just mentioned, all the things that he's able to do on offense and on defense, and combining those. And then Victor Oladipo, I think, should be around 89-90 area. Because, I mean, he did carry a team to a 4 seed, and yeah, they were better than LeBron. Like, that's got to count for something. He had a pretty comparable supporting cast to the one LeBron had. Arguably, LeBron's was better because he had Kevin Love, who's definitely a better player than any of Victor Oladipo's teammates, and he carried that supporting cast to a better record than LeBron did. So I think that definitely should count for something, and that they should give him a little more respect on that front. So I agree with you there a little bit, but I do think Klay Thompson is better. Any more you have two more, right? Under and overrated.
Yes. Quick note. A's lost by 1. They lost 8-7. They had a 4-run 8th inning with a bases clearing double. Just wasn't quite enough though. So now my next one. We will go to my next overrated boy because this man's doo-doo. And I was about to make a joke about how he was one of the greatest shooters of all time. When Chris said Steph Curry was first, I was going to say, no, I thought it was this guy. I was joking, of course. I'm talking about the, 5th overall pick? What was it? 3rd, 5th? I don't know. Trae Young. I think it was 5th.
I think he got technically taken 3rd, but he got traded. Or maybe he was taken, he was taken 5th and traded to the team with the 3rd pick.
Yeah, because Doncic.
Yeah. Doncic was taken 5th.
Trae Young. He was
or 3rd technically.
Technically 3rd overall pick.
Well, no, technically he was drafted.
He was
5th,
drafted at number 5.
He was
immediately for the 3rd overall pick.
In a trade.
I really don't think Trae Young is that good. Now, he has turnover problems. He has a lot of problems.
77, you think is too high?
77, I think is too high. I mean, you see some of the other 77s around him. Seth Curry has proven himself. Markelle Fultz probably also shouldn't be a 77. But you see some guys, Fred VanVleet, who I thought could have been the 6th man of the year last year. I think he should definitely be better. Even Colin Sexton, Quinn Cook, I think is much better. So some of the guys that are around him, I just think are better than him. And I think he should be more the 74 range.
Okay. I don't think he's that low at 74. I think that 77 may be a little high. Maybe he should be a 76. But I don't really have strong feelings either way. I watched a little bit of Trae Young in the summer league, and two things. Inconsistent shooter, very good passer. That's what I really recall. Because I remember that he would have some really bad games, shooting-wise, and some really good games shooting-wise. So, I mean, yeah, he showed a lot of inconsistency there. He's iffy shooting-wise, but he can have those great games. But then he's a really good point guard, which I really didn't know, actually, coming out of college, how good of a passer he was. I saw him make a lot of passes that were really on the level of a top-tier NBA floor general. He was finding all sorts of guys open for their shots. He was getting guys in their spots, getting guys shots in their shooting pockets for open jumpers, and he showed that he is definitely a good floor general. Now, I still think that he should have stayed back in college to work on the consistency of his scoring, but I think that as a pure point guard, he's still a very good player, and that's why he's rated at such a high rating. However, I could see him being rated maybe 1 or 2 below, but not all the way down to a 74. I think 76 is probably around the right rating for him. I'm going to get into a couple of mine that I saw, and right now I'm looking at the top 10 players overall, and I was looking at those, and I saw 10th was Karl-Anthony Towns. And I think Karl-Anthony Towns is a great player, and I think he will continue to progress and be one of the best players in the league a few years down the road. But I don't think that right now he deserves to be a higher overall than Chris Paul is.
Wait.
And
sorry.
That is...
Sorry. Completely
okay.
Sorry. This needs to be noted.
Does it
the
right
A's
now, really?
Tried to do the closer or whatever it's called. They started Liam Hendricks today. He went 1 2/3. Had to put it out there.
Okay. Back to what I was saying. Karl-Anthony Towns right now in 2K19, he's rated at a 91, whereas Chris Paul is rated at a 90. And I think that you can't put Karl-Anthony Towns above Chris Paul right now, especially after what Chris Paul, the performance that Karl-Anthony Towns had in the playoffs actually last year, and how good Chris Paul honestly was. And you saw Karl-Anthony Towns in that playoff series. He completely disappeared. He didn't take enough shots. He was not as assertive. He was not a scorer. He didn't play like the best player on the team. And if you look at the total the playoff stats just per game, you're seeing Karl Anthony Towns is average 15 per game on 27% from three, so which is much worse than it was in the regular season. And he shot 12 shots a game. That's not enough if you're going to be the best player on the team. Chris Paul shot 17 shots a game. He shot 37% from three, 21 points. He really raised his game up for the playoffs and delivered. And I mean, he averaged 2 steals. He did a lot more in the playoffs than you saw Karl Anthony Towns do. And although Karl Anthony Towns had a really good regular season, especially with his percentages, he was a super efficient scorer, 21 points a game. So that was a great season for him, right, in the regular season. I think that the fact that he just was completely shut off in the playoffs, it shows that he's not quite on that level yet. And the way that Chris Paul played, even beyond the stats, in big moments, how he came up clutch, I think that Chris Paul deserves a little bit higher rating than Karl Anthony Towns. So for that reason, I think that Karl Anthony Towns is maybe a little bit overrated. Should not be quite a top 10 player yet in the NBA. And Chris Paul is definitely underrated because I think that right now Chris Paul's at a 90, and Russell Westbrook and Kyrie Irving are each at 93. So I think Chris Paul should be at a 92 for that reason, because I think he's almost on that level of those top tier best point guards in the league. So yeah, that's my take on those ratings there. But Drew, you have any more or no?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I don't think Cat is a 91 and he's the best center. So that tells you all I need to say. That I don't know. I can't explain my feelings about this, but it's just frustrating because it feels like he's not that good, but at the same time, he is that good. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to put out there. For my fourth and final player, another guy I think is underrated. So for my third player, I did Trae Young. We'll keep the theme of rookies, and I will pick out Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is one of the most controversial players in the league. I believe he's rated at a 79 right now, if I am not mistaken. But I believe that he is the best rookie in the class, hands down, and we should be considering. Let's see.
Well, he has the best rating of any rookie, tied with DeAndre.
And somebody else, the Grizzlies dude.
Aaron Jackson's a 78.
Oh, never mind. But I think he's the best rookie. I think he should be at least an 80. Because of I feel like he's the kind of guy who's proven he can do it at a professional level, not the NBA level, but a professional level. And because of that, I think that separates him from almost every rookie we've seen in the past. And I think we can rate him like he's played in the pros before, because he has played in the pros before. So he can be sitting up here with some of the guys like Dennis Schroeder and Isaiah Thomas, because I think that he was the MVP of the second best league.
He was the best player in the second best league in the world.
So, I just feel like if you're that good, it deserves to be noted.
So you think he should be what, like an 81 maybe?
Yeah, I think he should be like an 81.
I could get behind that, honestly. I mean, I think rookies shouldn't be rated too high to start because, I mean, they are obviously, it's a given that they're not proven yet. They haven't played a game yet. They can't be proven. But I do think that as the best player in the second best league in the league, in the second best league in the world, he does deserve maybe a little bit more respect. But I don't think you can go any further than an 81. But I also do happen to agree that he is the best player in the draft class. But I also think the beauty of 2K19 is that you can really change the ratings based on how the players play. So you can take Luka Doncic, and if he averages 18 points in his first 5 games, maybe there will be an immediate roster update where Luka Doncic is an 81. And if he's averaging 18 points through his first month, Luka Doncic might go up to an 84. And if he wins Rookie of the Year and he's going crazy, then next year in 2K20, he might go all the way up to an 88, an 87, like Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell and Ben Simmons. They're all 87s this year. Maybe he'll just go up to an 87 like those guys did. You can definitely see updates coming in the future, potentially. So I think that's the beauty of a game that can be updated. So I do think that maybe he could be a little bit higher. I also understand that they don't want to make any rookies above 80 because they haven't played a game yet. You have no idea how good they'll be. You do have an idea, but you don't really know for sure at all how good they'll be in the NBA. So I do understand that. And on to my last few. I have 3, but they're all similar conversations. I was looking at the top 10 once more, and I was looking towards the middle of that top 10, and there's 3 guys in particular that I think are a little bit underrated, and that is Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Steph Curry right now is a 95, and James Harden is a 96, and I do understand that James Harden won MVP last year, and deservedly so. Probably he had a really great season. He definitely put up some really incredible stats, some really impressive numbers. But I'm definitely going to stick with the fact that I'm going to stick with my opinion that Steph Curry is a better player than James Harden. Regardless of that last season, how they each played, I think that Steph Curry is better. And so I just think that Steph Curry should be a 96. I don't think James Harden should go down to a 95, but I think Steph Curry should be a 96. So I think they should be even at 96. And then Anthony Davis and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think, should each be higher. I think Anthony Davis actually should be a 96. He's right now listed at 94. I think he should shoot all the way up to 96, and Giannis should be a 95. And the reason I think AD should be a 96 is because I think AD, when you mention top 3 players in the NBA, AD is in the conversation no matter what. And right now, he's ranked tied for 5th with 3 other guys. And yeah, they're all great players, but I think that when you're talking about, I haven't heard a top 5 in the last year that hasn't included Anthony Davis in terms of top 5 players. And Anthony Davis is tied with the 7th best player in the NBA in this rating. So I think Anthony Davis deserves the respect of a top 5 player. And so for that reason, I think Anthony Davis should be a 96. So that would mean the top 5 in 2K would be LeBron 98, Durant 97, Curry, Davis, and Harden all at 96. And I think that is the order of those players: LeBron, Durant, Curry, Davis, and then Harden, followed by Giannis Antetokounmpo for now. But when Kawhi Leonard gets healthy, if he's able to play like he was when he played his last full season, which was the 2016-17 year, where he was 3rd in MVP voting, then Kawhi Leonard may have to move up past Giannis Antetokounmpo. Although I love Giannis, Kawhi Leonard at his peak is probably a better player. We'll see if he is able to get there, or if Giannis will continue to improve and just blow everyone out of the water. We don't know. But I do think that Giannis should be a little higher, Davis should be a little higher, and Steph Curry might be a smidge higher too, just to put him on the same level as James Harden. But that's all we really have right now for the 2K ratings. And so we're going to move on to the ending section of our show. I actually have a bit to say on this one, and so the first part of our ending section, Drew, we're gonna do what we want to see, and I have some things that I do want to see happen right now, and I'm gonna talk about, well, as we know, the college football season opened this weekend, and so I'm gonna talk about college football, and here's what I want to see. I want to see top-ranked college football teams I want to see them stop scheduling trash opponents for Week 1. And I don't mean to offend any of these football programs that were absolutely obliterated today, but it wasn't. No one wants to watch teams get destroyed by top-ranked football teams. I mean, I just don't understand what you gain from watching these games. And okay, let's go through a few of the top teams. Let's go through number 1. Let's go Bama. They had Louisville, number 1 overall team Bama, after they took a W in the national championship game last year. They won 51-14 against Louisville. That's a blowout, but it's not even the biggest one. Next game, 48-7, Clemson over Furman. What, Furman? I don't know. I've never heard of Furman. Have you heard of Furman?
And what country is that in?
Exactly. Who is Furman? Like, why am I watching that game? Why is that one of the games that is that? Why is the best team in the country, or one of the best teams in the country playing Furman? Why? I don't need to see that. I don't need to see 2 seed play Furman. I don't know who that is. I don't need to see Georgia win 45-0 against Austin Peay. Georgia, you're the 3rd-ranked team in the country. You just came off of a national championship appearance. Who is Austin Peay, and why do you need to beat them 45-0? We know you're good, so play somebody decent. Wisconsin, they only won 34-3. Their game was against Western Kentucky. I mean, Western Kentucky, they're just not that good. I don't know why Wisconsin's playing them. You won the game by 31. No one wants to watch a 31-point blowout where one team only scores 3 points. And no one wants to watch Ohio State win 77-31 against Oregon State.
You shouldn't give up 31 points to Oregon State.
That's
also.
true. That's what I was thinking. Exactly. Why are you?
If
First
it wasn't
of all,
bad enough that you decided, we need to play Oregon State week 1, you also decided to give up 31 points. Like, what the heck?
77, my guy. Like, that's not it. That's not what we want to watch. And also, absolutely no one wants to watch a 63-14 dismantling of FAU. Shout out to my boy Max Ziffer. But FAU got destroyed, actually. Yeah, 63-14. Why? Kyler Murray showed out. 9 for 11, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. That Oakland Athletic in the future, potentially. But there's so many games that could have been good that I just don't want to watch. In terms of those top tier, upper echelon teams playing against trash opponents, honestly. And on the other side of the spectrum, you see number 6 versus number 9 game. It's Auburn, number 9, beating Washington, who was number 6, and that game was 21-16. That's a quality football game. That's something that I would actually want to watch. That's something that I would actually be willing to spend my time to sit down and watch. Number 14, Notre Dame versus number 14, Michigan, versus number 12, Notre Dame. That was 17-24. That's a one-score game. That's actually a game worth watching. A game that's within 1 or 2 scores maybe is actually entertaining, but a game that's 77-31, that's just crazy. That's not worth watching, honestly. Penn State, Appalachian State was a great game, actually, surprisingly. Appalachian State, it should not have been in terms of Penn State, but Appalachian State, the unranked Appalachian State Mountaineers came in and took Penn State to, I believe, was it overtime, just overtime, but they took Penn State to overtime, so that game was actually surprisingly entertaining, but the rest of those games where it's a good team against an unranked opponent, you've got 55-7, TCU destroys Southern University.
Southern of where?
Exactly. It doesn't even say where. It just says Southern. Like no one. I don't want to watch that. I want to watch a good football game. Mississippi State beat Stephen F. Austin, the 14 seed from the NCAA tournament last year, 63-6. That's not fun. All right. That's enough for today. I'm done with that little rant. But it's just, if you're a top college football team, please schedule at least somebody okay for your first week. Like, I get that you're trying to ease into it. It does make sense for your football team, but it's just not fun to watch you win by 50.
At least Bama and Ohio State decided to choose teams people have heard of before.
Exactly.
Like Clemson decided, maybe Furman's a good idea. Thank you very much. No! You better get that little trash out of my party. You can't be doing that stuff. Anyways, let's get to my topic. What I would like to see is I think that MLB needs to make this season shorter. And I know what you're saying. You say a lot of stuff, Drew, and that is very true. I say a lot of things I probably shouldn't say. This is not one of them. The MLB's problem right now is they're not popular enough because for parts of the season they're overlapping with different sports, but I don't think that's the number one problem. I think the number one problem is nobody wants to sit down and watch 3 hours of baseball. And here's how you can change that. Don't say, let's make the game 2 hours. No, what you gotta say is, we're gonna make less games in the season. Because what really makes people tired is watching 3 hours 162 times. If you're only going to be watching that 140 times, or that's just a random thing. We can make it whatever length. I don't know. But if you make it shorter, there's going to be higher demand to go to games. Fans will be happier because they'll be more excited. Plus, you get to the playoffs quicker. There's less overlap with other sports, which detracts viewers as well. So I think we need to make the season shorter. That's my little spiel. Now, let's get to everybody's favorite part of the show. It's the last part of the show. It is everybody's favorite game. Let's play State of. We're going to start with football, then we're going to do baseball, then we'll do basketball. So, we're going to put it through this little random list. And our number one team here is the Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about the Cowboys.
Should I go first?
Yep.
What is the state of the Dallas Cowboys? Actually, the Dallas Cowboys aren't in too bad of a spot right now. They have a franchise player in Ezekiel Elliott who can really be the focal point of an offense in the NFL. They have who I think is going to be a serviceable franchise quarterback in Dak Prescott. So I think that they have the foundation for a very solid offense. And they have, in terms of defensively, they're not strong, but they do have Sean Lee, who is definitely a defensive anchor. So I think that the Cowboys they have a good start to what looks like a good start to a good football team. But the problem with the Cowboys, they don't actually have a good football team. Like, they have the start, but they don't have the rest of the team. So the Cowboys, I think they're actually in a decent spot because they have young players. They can, I guess, maybe not rebuild, but they can stock up more talent, more young talent, and add it to the roster. So I think that they are in a position where they can succeed in the near future, in the next few years. But I think they do definitely have a lot of work to do. That's all.
Yeah, I don't like the position that the Cowboys are in, to be honest. I think that Dak has been getting worse every year. Zeke, obviously, last year was kind of a throwaway because of some of the stuff he got into. But, really, Zeke hasn't progressed like we thought he would after how good he was in that first year.
He only played 1 year, though. If you're saying last year was a scratch. That's
true. But he just doesn't feel like the same type of player we remember from that rookie year. And I don't like. I think part of the reason he felt so impactful was because he had Dak alongside him, and it doesn't feel like the same Dak. And because of that, I think they're taking a step backwards almost here, and it's going to take them a while to really get back into the meat of things. Now let's go on to baseball. I'm going to go through my baseball thing here. We got the Indians. This is a fun team to talk about.
The Windians. I do like the Windians because they are a team that is really contending right now, and that is because of the fact that they have players on both sides of the ball, I guess you could say, that are difference makers. And so let's talk about the Indians, the best players that the Indians have. And it's really, especially, it's that infield, and then they also have Michael Brantley, who's good. But that infield is really, really strong. And it's Lindor, it's Ramirez, and Kipnis especially. Those three guys they're a very strong start already to any team, to the team. And the fact that they also have Michael Brantley back from injury, playing very well. He's hitting .305 this year, by the way. That's just those guys right there are a really good start to to a baseball team. And Jose Ramirez, he's playing like he's an MVP candidate this year. 37 home runs right now. That's incredible. 94 RBIs. He's doing a great job. He is getting on base. He's got a 400 on base percentage, so he's getting on base all the time. You've really got a lot of guys that are really good baseball players. Actually, Jason Kipnis is having a really tough season this year, so I guess you should really look at Lindor, Brantley, and Ramirez. Edwin Encarnacion, add some pop to that lineup, and Josh Donaldson now coming over in the trade for, I believe, Yonder Alonso, was it? That got traded for Josh Donaldson?
I'm not completely sure. I'll tell you when I have.
But Josh Donaldson coming over in trade, that helps. Alonso, if he was traded, that is actually a decent bit of their offense that they are losing because he's had a really good season. But it's a team that has a lot of solid players, especially highlighted by those 3 stars, Brantley, Ramirez, and Lindor. So, I mean, they're a team that has a good offensive sort of. They've got a good offensive lineup. Let's just put it that way. And then pitching wise, they've got Corey Kluber and Trevor Bauer, who are both really good players. Especially this year, you've seen Trevor Bauer play very well. He has emerged as one of the best pitchers in the league, actually, at least for this year. He's got a 2.22 ERA. Kluber, 2.80. Their other starters, Mike Clevenger and Carlos Carrasco, 3.17 and 3.38, respectively. Those are really good numbers from those guys. And so when you have those numbers from starters, you're going to have a really solid, that's a really solid start to a team. And pitching wise, so I think that the fact that they have those type of pitchers along with those hitters, that's a really good combination that is going to take them into the playoffs. I do think that they're going to need a little bit more though if they really want to be on the same level as the Astros and the Red Sox though. So I really like their position because they're already competing, but I do think they need a little more to compete with the big boys out in the AL.
It says here that he's traded simply for a player to be named later. So if so, that's a great deal for the Indians. That shouldn't be true, though. There's no way that you can be that stupid. If it is true, then good for the Indians. I mean, what can I say about that? I think you know my opinion. Josh Donaldson's a great player. He's going to make them better, especially if you're not giving up much. I think he'll be a great DH. You can move Edwin to first. Defending will be a slight problem, but you have a guaranteed home run each game from one of those 5 infielders. I mean, really, they've probably combined for over 200. Nah, never mind.
Donaldson's been injured.
No way. But I think in their best years, they've all topped 40. Or will later in their career. So, those 5 guys.
Well, not Kipnis, but.
Oh, yeah, not Kipnis, but the other 4. Those 5 guys are all extremely talented and extremely good for your team. And so, because of that, it's going to be fun to see the Indians. Now, let's get over to basketball. Let's see what we get here. We have the Houston Rockets.
Ooh. The Houston Rockets, we're Warriors fans. We are not Rockets fans for that reason. Especially I dislike the Rockets, actually. But fortunately for me, I don't think the Rockets are really in a great spot right now. I mean, if you look at what made them good last year, it was because they were able to combine that explosive offense of Harden especially, and also Chris Paul, along with Clint Capella, with some really good defense. And you had a really good two-way team, and you had guys that could catch and shoot in the corner off of passes from Paul and Harden, and they could also defend. However, you lost 2 of those guys in Lukamba Mute and in Trevor Ariza this year. And for that reason, I do think that they have lost a step. And that's good for me. But if you look at the spot that they're in right now, they have to basically beat the Warriors because of how old Chris Paul is. And Chris Paul he's not going to be able to compete at a high level for too many more years. So basically, that's a roster that is assembled to try and beat the current Golden State Warriors, and I don't think that's happening with the roster they have right now. But it is a problem that can be fixed. However, as soon as they fix that problem, you turn around and Kawhi Leonard's playing with LeBron James on the Los Angeles Lakers. So, I don't really know how that's going to go down. But I do think that it's going to be a tough road ahead for the Rockets. Drew, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I do agree that I think that the Warriors took a big step forward, and on the other side, the Rockets did not, and that's going to hurt the Rockets considering they already lost to them. There's nothing they can do about it now except for try to make a trade for another defender type near the deadline. I don't know who that would be, but it would be interesting to find out. So yeah, I think it's looking really good for the Warriors right now.
So that's going to wrap it up. Another fun show this week. We had a lot of good talks. We'll be back though next week. Don't even worry about it. We'll be back with some more updates on your Bay Area sports teams and some more debates, more hot takes probably. I don't know. We'll see. Good night, everybody. We'll be back again next week on Saturday night. Until then, though, enjoy the beginning of school.